Live from Curious Comedy Theater in Portland, Oregon, where summer may be over, but shorts weather stays forever. It's Late Night Special! From Pueblo, you need a PDX can, come on! Comedian and certified nutritionist, Craig McCarthy! Musical guest, Lisa James and Chelsea Stoop Duo! House band, the Laugh Tracks! And your host, Stacy Halal J. Blue Willie!
Wow! Oh my God, welcome to Late Night Special!
Yeah! Give yourself a round of applause for hanging out here with us. That makes you the smartest people in town.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Jay.
It's so great to see you
I was
again.
out last week. I'm happy to be back. And what a week it has been.
It has been such a doozy.
I think we better just jump right into it.
Please do.
The Trump administration announced that it was revoking California's ability to set its own emission standards, noting that the last time he had California emissions, Stormy Daniels got a check for $130,000.
Cha-ching! Well, okay, so NASA and European Space Agency scientists have discovered a new comet likely visiting from a different solar system. Now, the Trump administration is already trying to send this comet back to Mexico.
I don't know if that was for Trump or the joke, but
A little bit of both.
I didn't write it.
Gross as good as a laugh, people.
in Illinois this week, 2,000 fetal remains were found in a former abortion doctor's home. Now, on one hand, this sounds really bad. On the other hand, I'm so glad to know I'm not the only one who has a problem with bringing work home with me.
Yeah.
Phew.
Well, this week, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson compared himself to the Hulk, saying, "The madder the Hulk gets, the stronger the Hulk gets." Now, UK residents are now clamoring for Johnson to be exposed to a lethal dose of gamma radiation.
You're gonna be the Hulk, go all the way.
Yes.
Last week, Joe Biden spoke about racism at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, which was the site of a 1963 firebombing that killed 4 young African-American girls. While he was there, he said, quote, "Those who are white can never fully understand racism." After that, he white-splained racism for about an hour.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Joe.
Yeah, thank you so
Thanks.
much. Yeah. Well, a recent study claims that surgical students that go through clicker training become better surgeons. Now, this is expected to replace the old method of surgical training, a newspaper bop on the nose. Oh,
Bad surgeon, bad,
surgeon.
no!
Cut.
I heard about this a lot. I don't know if you did this week, but a Florida couple was arrested for drunk bicycling. And then they stripped fully naked and began to have sex in the back of the police car.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys heard that. Is this true? The couple said they only have fire truck and medical helicopter left for their emergency service vehicle sex bingo.
Ah. Yahtzee. All right.
Free space.
Well, President Trump has named former hostage negotiator Robert O'Brien as his 4th national security advisor in 3 years. Some other names had been floated around the job, but when Melania heard about O'Brien being a hostage negotiator, she said, "Him, please, him, please get him."
Please get him.
Blink twice if you're okay, Melania.
In Australia this week, 100 cryogenic cylinders of bull semen exploded in a fire at a cattle breeding facility. Again, this is all true. Now, the owner swears that this has never happened before and that his cylinders usually last a lot longer.
Much longer, just like one time thing.
My cylinders are tired. What?
They're getting old.
Well, there's outrage in China after much beloved panda Chuang died after being loaned to a zoo in Thailand. Now, personally, I feel bad for the unloved pandas. Healthy, happy, and hated by all. That's you, Taishan! That's you! This should have happened to you!
How can you love that face?
What a terrible panda.
Isn't every panda beloved? That's the point of the joke, sir. According to a new study, cavemen were found with traces of cheese in their teeth, despite it being proven that they were lactose intolerant. In all fairness, what else would you serve at a cave painting gallery opening? Cheese and wine. Cheese and wine.
Well, some sad news. Jeopardy host Alex Trebek is undergoing another round of chemotherapy for his pancreatic cancer. Now, Alex, if you're watching, I think I speak for everyone here when I say we love you, and we'd gladly give you any organ from Pat Sajak. It should have been you!
Yeah.
Should have been you!
What a terrible host.
Who could love that face? Canadian PM Justin Trudeau apologized this week. I know, broken heart. After journalists discovered 3 different pictures of him wearing blackface when he was younger. 3 pictures sounds like a lot, but with the exchange rate, it actually equals only 1 blackface picture and 1 lawn jockey.
Yeah.
So, it's Late Night Special!
Bill McKinley. There we go. Yes.
Except for the laugh tracks, our fantastic band and Bill McKinley.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, what a week.
Oh, what a week. I was so heartbroken about Trudeau.
That's really
What can you
sad.
do?
Yeah.
What can you do when you grow up the child of a prime minister and get everything you've ever wanted?
Not wear shoe polish on your fucking
I
face.
know.
Well, in lighter news, my week, I got to participate in a mock jury. Has anybody ever done a mock jury? You've done it? It's amazing. It's amazing.
Did you get paid for it?
Yes, I got paid $225 American. Yeah. And you go.
And I think in Canadian, that's just 1 picture of a blackface person and 1 lawn jockey. Okay. I could have
Yeah, no, it's a very real thing. The American Jury Association, I answered a no-caller ID, and they were like, do you want to participate in this? And I was like, yes. And you go in there and you get presented a case, and it's like kind of like a trial run for the firm that hired this association. So it's a real case that's going to happen. I can't talk about it, Stacey. I can't talk about it.
Can you talk about whether the people on the jury with you seemed reasonable or not?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you asked that, because there was one person who was so incredibly stupid. It was basically, okay, this case hinged on like 1 phrase. Let's say, like if we were going to use theater terms, like call time. Call time is the time that you as a performer have to be there. So there's 1 specific word, a jargon, key that was explained ad nauseum for 6 hours by both sides, the defendant and the plaintiff. And we're talking, we're in the jury, we're hashing out, whatever. I'm like, hey, what do you think? Because I was the foreman, obviously. And I'm like, hey, well, what did you think? And she's like, what does call time mean? And I was like, what the fuck? And then I was like, this is what it would really be like. If somebody's life, like we're going to vote on whether they're guilty, and they're going to, this could be a real jury.
I was on a real jury for like a car accident liability case, and we walk back and we sit down, and the foreman, which I was not.
Okay.
I'm 5'3" and a woman.
I know, it was like, tall guy, yeah.
People have to warm up to me over time. And we sat down, and somebody says, so what do we think? What's our first impression? I'm like, oh, God, obviously he's guilty. Just look at him. That was how it started. And I was like, oh, no. And then we had a law student that usually they get plucked off before they get to the jury. He was trying to make it like 12 Angry Men, and it was, and then everybody was totally split. And then at 5 to 5, everyone was like, if we don't decide by 5, we all have to come back tomorrow. And everyone just switched to 1 agreement. Nobody wanted to come back.
Wow.
I'm sorry, did I make you all worried about our justice system? Fucking good! It's fucked up!
Yeah.
I've never noticed any problems with it.
And then my favorite part, though, was they had this, like, super, this was in Boston, and there was, like, this super bleached blonde woman with her hair all piled up who was the receptionist at this auto dealership who witnessed the whole thing. And this guy had driven off, hit one car, hit all the cars, all brand new cars, all along a dealership. And she had witnessed the thing, and the sleazy lawyer kept trying to make it like she was dumb and like, where's the sidewalk? Now where's your desk? Now where's the sidewalk? Now and she just was, and we had to wait an hour. She was an hour late, so like everyone had to wait. And she just looked at him and she was like, there's the parking lot, and there's the sidewalk, and that's a tree, and that's a...
Oh, no, yeah.
That was just like
well,
my favorite.
it was such a fascinating experience. I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Good.
Yeah. And I also, you know who I'm loving is that Swedish girl, Greta. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She came over to Sweden on a zero carbon boat.
Right?
To make a stand, and she's shaking things up, and I'm cheering her on.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
She's amazing, yeah.
Well,
she might be a robot.
Whoa, hey, he's up. She's on this kind
yeah,
of.
she is. She's on the autism spectrum.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shit.
So you've been following her, but not too close.
Not too close.
It's a really big part of her story.
It's like, I like you.
Well, I mean, did you see the picture of her, the black and white picture of her from last August, where she was literally the only one on this climate strike, and now there were, like in New York, there were 250,000 people.
Yeah.
In Berlin, there were 100,000, and like millions of people across the globe.
The world.
Absolutely.
The youth are changing the world.
They sure are, and we're listening to them, right?
Well, somebody my age, I'm 35. A friend of mine who's the same age, she was like, our generation is kind of being ignored, and maybe even yours as well, because we're just waiting for the baby boomers to die off. I'm just bringing the show way down. But it's like we're stuck with the baby boomers like making the decisions, and like we can't participate, but then the younger generation coming in is going to be the difference. And I think that's very exciting.
It is exciting. And millennials are getting older as well.
Yeah, womp womp.
Are you solidly a millennial? Or are you in that like mini generation?
I consider myself Generation Y. Like
that is millennials.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So yes.
so-
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
So you're following the generations, but not too close.
Yeah.
No, I mean like millennials are like in the front end of them are like 38, 39 right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like depending on how you define it, it's like started at the 80s or after. So I mean, they're people who are professionals, and that's why I love when they refer to millennials as those are avocado toast people. It's like no, it's your doctor, it's your lawyer, it's people who are professionals.
Yeah.
Now, so
They gone grown up. The
Yeah.
millennial. A round of applause. Who's a millennial who is here right now? Who is Generation X? It's me and Bill.
just the two of us.
Yay!
Baby boomers, who's here?
No, you're not. How dare you? Liar.
If you're a liar, you're
Well,
that
but
guy.
the youth are changing the world. The youth are changing the world.
Well, speaking of that, there was something else you wanted to chat about.
Yeah. Has anyone seen the essentials for back to school? A video made by the Sandy Hook Promise. I think it's absolutely incredible, and I think that I want to share it on this platform.
Okay. We're gonna share something, and
It's gonna get real.
It's gonna get real for a minute.
And then we'll come back. We'll come back.
Yeah. Okay. Let's show it.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These helpful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
guys have seen that. Some of you have seen that. Why is that so important to you, Jay? Why do you want to share it?
I mean, this is the world that we're living in, and I thought it was such a beautiful way to present it as like, you know, this is a Target commercial. This is something light. This is back to school, and it's easy to overlook what's staring us right at the face. And so I think it's important to share that message.
I feel like it's just, I don't know if everybody's feeling this, but I feel like especially this September, it is back to school time. The weather is changing. There's so much going on with climate change. Politics are heating up. The election's heating up. All these issues are in the front of our mind. There were so many controversies this week. I feel like everybody's exhausted. Are you guys feeling exhausted? And it's like, where do you start? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like a lot of people, like, what can we do, right? We feel really hopeless when we see something. I don't know what I can do. I wish there was, like, a list of things I could do. And instead of having a list of things to do, I think we tend to fight with each other, which is a true phenomenon called lateral violence. It's been studied amongst nurses, particularly, for decades. Because the nurses tend to be so disempowered in the environment where the hospital administrators, the doctors, the insurance companies, and they're the nurses doing all of the hard work, and so they tend to fight with each other because that's where you can feel like you're having an effect, even if it's a negative effect. I'm going to get a little emotional talking about it. So I feel like everybody's doing that to each other right now. So today, just to turn this around a little bit, because this is other stuff is also happening. So a friend of mine lost her dad. He was 84 this week, and he was a pastor, a Lutheran church, and there's a beautiful description of him at the funeral about being the doorkeeper at the house of God. And the pastor of the funeral was saying there's a difference between somebody who's the doorkeeper who is the greeter and the person who's the bouncer. And that a lot of churches have been training bouncers, and that this man was a greeter. And 84, when he passed away this week, he had made his church open to the LGBTQ community, like way ahead of his time. And they were talking about how much he was a welcoming person to the community. So he loved the band Pink Martini. Favorite band. For those of you who don't know Pink, who does know Pink Martini? If you don't know Pink Martini, they're amazing. It's a huge band. They tour the world. They're based out of Portland. And it was his favorite band. And so my friend on a lark was like, I'm going to reach out and see if they might play at his funeral. I know it's a crazy thing to ask, but I have this contact and I'm going to see. So she called them up. And they're on this 35-city tour, and they're currently in Canada. And they were like, we can't come, but we'll live stream it. And so we drove, my boyfriend John and I drove down to Salem, set up a live stream on our side. And, you know, it's terrifying because live stream's so unpredictable still. And we set it all up, and the end, they told us when to tell them to get ready, that it would be 5 minutes, but it wasn't. Like, it went really fast. It's the end of a funeral, and I'm like, okay, it's time. They're like, we're not ready. And I'm like, oh, no. So we stalled a little bit, and it was only like 30 seconds. It was not a big deal at all. And I thought it was going to be kind of them unplugged, informally, you know, just doing a little tribute to her dad. And so the tour manager answers, and he turns around, and the whole band is there on this beautiful stage in Winnipeg, Canada, in full, you know, the Thomas who plays the keys in full tails, and they did his favorite song live in Winnipeg, Canada, for this pastor who passed away in Salem, Oregon. And I was just like, today love wins, today!
Pink Martini!
And for this man who truly deserved it.
So,
yeah.
There is joy in the world.
There is. There are people who are trying. They're just like gasping, like, love each other.
Saturday Night Live is trying.
Yes, so I wanted to chat for a second about Saturday Night Live. The whole Shane Gillis situation. You guys all been following that? So Shane Gillis. So Saturday Night Live has hired the first and this is not Shane Gillis, the first Asian American ever in their 45
Thank
years
you. Thank you.
as a show, which is amazing. And other shows have, like Mad TV had Asian Americans and like a lot of diversity. SNL has not been great on the diversity train, and so they hired the first Asian American, and also they hired a man named Shane Gillis who very recently has a history of saying racist things against Asians and is a homophobe. And so as soon as he hired, all this stuff came out about him. And they waited a little while, and then they finally decided to fire him. And people have been arguing both sides of this situation, and I just want to talk for a second about, so a lot of people have been saying, comedians are supposed to push boundaries, and he was a comedian, he was just making a joke. And if you are aware of what he said, it was sort of the equivalent of like if I said, ghost towns are a shithole, let the fucking cowboys have them. Have it, right? That was what he said, but in a racist context. And the thing is, it's just not a joke. There's no joke there. Like, it's controversial whether, it's subjective whether a joke is funny or not, but comedy's actually a craft, and there was no joke there. It was just a racist statement condemning this ethnic area and the people who live in that area.
And he said it multiple times.
Many times. And so it just wasn't even funny. So he might as well be like, it was just a tomato. Like, it's as much a tomato as it was a joke. If you ask me, like, gardeners are supposed to push boundaries, and it was just a tomato, everybody. Like, it just wasn't, there was no surprise, there was no wordplay, it wasn't even a joke. So I'm a little personally tired of people hiding behind it was a joke, or comedy is supposed to push boundaries. Do I believe that political correctness has gotten extreme and maybe gone too far at times? Absolutely. However, if this choice of SNL to fire Shane Gillis were a pie served up to Paul Hollywood during Pastry Week on the Great British Baking Show, it would get Star Baker. That's what I'm saying. This is a perfectly prepared piece of justice that really needed to happen. Now, did SNL fuck up in hiring him and not vetting him in the first place? Sure, they failed the technical.
Okay.
But the showstopper, they really pulled it together and came through. Should they get all the way through and win the show? Probably not. Probably not. But this episode, they get Star Baker. So that's what I think about it. But our writer, we have a little tribute to SNL and to Shane Gillis. Please welcome Kat Buckley.
Yeah! Oh, the places Shane Gillis will go. Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places, you're off and away. You have jokes in your head and feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. Yet you chose racist jokes because you know what you know. So SNL decided where your butt could go. And maybe it's not how you'd want to go down, but sadly it's time to head straight out of town. Don't worry though, it's not as bad as it sounds. For you, my dear friend, there are options abound. Oh, the places Shane Gillis will go. You can do Joe Rogan's podcast to talk about Jews. And after 3 hours, he'll agree with your views. Then it's Alex Jones with all of his crazy. You can come on his show if you help sell his brain pill gravy. Next, it's Hannity and Tucker and all of the foxes. You can yell at each other about how big your cocks is. You're on your way down, you'll be seeing strange sights, like Rob Schneider and Norm Macdonald agreeing you're right. You can then join the Proud Boys and do racist impressions, which feel less like a joke and more a confession. You'd look good in red at a Proud barbecue, surrounded by people who think Kid Rock is cool. Then it's back onto Twitter to earn no one's respect, complaining now everyone's politically correct. But if that were true, which I highly suspect, could I say you look like a thumb on a neck? Now I'm sorry to say, but sadly it's true, that bang-ups and hang-ups will happen to you. You'll tour the country with some YouTube star playing to people too young for the bar. You'll play colleges and dive bars with Pete Davidson in tow, who can't help but say the R word during most of the show. But the question, Shane Gillis, is will you succeed? Of course not. We'll forget about you in 3 weeks guaranteed. Now you're off to great places, 15 minutes taking away. Your ambient Twitter rant is waiting. So go and get on your way.
Thank you. That's where to go. That's where to go.
I was worried about him.
It's his graduation.
Yeah.
Well, I think we could use a little musical break. How about you?
Yes, I do.
Very excited about our musical guests. I've heard them even in sound check. They're so beautiful and lovely. You can catch them on Spotify to listen to a little bit more. Please welcome Lisa James and Chelsea Sue.
You are beautiful.
so soothed.
Yeah.
I thought it was really nice.
Yeah.
And really,
I felt comforted.
Yeah, comforted.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
I felt like everything was going to be all right.
I did too. I did
took
too.
a dip, and it was
did
like.
You? I hope you did. And speaking of which, another thing that makes me feel comforted is travel and exploring new places. And we need sponsors to do this show.
We can't keep the lights on
without our sponsors. And so Travel Oregon's one of our sponsors, and we've been doing some investigative reporting around town, finding some fun experiences to share with our audiences. And so we sent out one of our writers to do a Travel Oregon special word from our sponsor. Please welcome Carl Berger.
You really cranked that down, Stacy. Well, first of all, thank you guys for being here. I'm usually used to doing bigger rooms like the Red Lion Airport, but this is fine.
That wasn't me. It was Kat who did that.
She's got a grip.
She's short too.
I'm glad. Thank you. And thank you guys for all being here tonight, and thank you guys watching at home on my live stream on onlycams.com. I put together a nice little packet, a little slideshow I'd like to present to you, a thing that I'm calling Portland's Top Vacant Lots in Which to Drink In by Carl Berger. So let's get this thing started with number 10. This is 3584 North Vancouver Avenue. Now, this lot boasts a lot of hip graffiti, okay? And it's got a smooth lawn for picnics and cartwheels. You can sit here in the moist grass as the last days of summer pass you by. And why don't we pair this nice lot with something that I think really is reminiscent of that fresh-cut lawn. We're going to go with a Rogue Spirits Cranberry Elderflower Vodka Soda. Yeah. Yeah, the drink that says, you know, I gave it my college try, but gosh darn it, I'm 38 and living in my mom's basement now. Number 9, okay, this lot right here, this is 3441 Northeast 15th Avenue. You see there, I am having a good time already. Now, this has been a really hot commodity for a while. And although it's not as exclusive as some of the other lots on the list, it does scream location, 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 okay? Right off the 24 TriMet line and adjacent to a Whole Foods, you know you're not too far from fun. So I would suggest pairing with this lot a bag of Franzia, and you can just slap that sucker dry, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, let's go on to number 8 now. This is 5035 Northeast Sandy Boulevard. Now, you guys won't believe it, but this lot used to be a taco time. So you know this is going to be a turned-ass party lot, okay? With a newly added chain link fence, you don't have to worry about too much rabid raccoons or delinquent teens getting in on your lot time. And because of the pre-existing structure, we suggest pairing something with a little south of the border flavor. So why don't you grab a man can of Tecate, and just lie back on that hot pavement and enjoy that sizzling lot. All right, number 7, this is a good one. This is a real gem here. This is 11295 US Route 26. Now, there are a lot of you out there, I've heard in some of my other columns, complaining that, Southeast just isn't that hip anymore. It's lost its edge, it's overrun with yuppies who kill your chill vibes. Well, you're wrong, and you're dumb, okay? At the corner of 112th and Powell Boulevard, this vacant lot puts the tits back into hepatitis, okay? The original Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Powell Boulevard, boasts an incredible number of strip clubs, as well as a lot of open spaces to smash bottles. So we recommend pairing this lot with 2 bottles of Mickey's Malt Liquor and a game of every 40 hands. Now, number 6 on the list, this is a true gem. Man, 2805 Northwest Upshur Street. This is a relic of old Portland that brings that kind of old Northwest Portland vibe to vacant lot binge drinking. Okay, so it's located close to the trailhead of Forest Park. This is the best lot that you can day drink in before you go on a little hike, in which you'll ultimately get lost and probably lose a limb on. So with this lot, we recommend pairing a gallon bottle of Carlo Rossi Chianti with that. Now, a pro tip for all you lot binge drinkers out there, this lot is within 500 feet of a school, so if that sets off alarms in your head, maybe skip this one. Word to the wise, just saying. Number 5, just 8 more. Number 5, this is 2299 Southeast Nehalem Street. Now, for those of you looking to party in kind of a more residential part of town, this lot is everything to you. This is in the heart of Selwood, so you got families, moms and dads pushing strollers, and of course the Acropolis Strip Club. These are just a few of the characteristics that make Selwood so charming. I mean, where else in Portland can you go buy your baby Bjorn accessories and then skip on down the street to get bottomless steak bites at a strip club that has a C rating from the health inspector and a double D rating from this guy right here, okay? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. So we suggest pairing with this lot something that's going to appeal to all those Cali families moving up here. And I'm talking about pairing a Stumptown cold brew with Sculpin Ballast Point Ale. Yeah, mix those two together and you're going to have a real good time there.
Carl.
Yeah.
I think that's enough. I can't believe this is what we paid you to do. And by paid, I mean didn't pay you to do.
No, I see that, Stacy, but I just think a lot of this information is pretty pertinent, especially to a lot of the people out there who might be alcoholic real estate agents looking for investment properties.
He's got a point.
Carl, that seems like an incredibly small demographic of people to be aiming for.
I don't know about that, Stacy. I think there's a lot of people out there who are in real estate that also have a drinking problem. Yeah.
You did, Carl.
Yeah. That guy sold me my house.
Carl.
Yeah.
Get off stage.
Okay. That.
Carl Berger. Wow. I did learn a lot, I have to admit. I did learn a lot. Oh my goodness. He worked really hard on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he narrowed that down from over 200 empty lots he went and drank in.
Each of them personally visited.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I am ready for our first guest.
Yes.
This is an activist in town, founder and director of an organization called Pueblo Unido. Please welcome Cam Coble.
Cam Coble! Look at that suit!
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
You look very sharp.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Jay, you usually are dressed. This is the first time I think you've been out
I've
dressed.
been out suited.
You have.
And I like it. Hey, give it up for the suit!
Yeah. I'm excited to have you here. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Pueblo Unido is a nonprofit we started in April 2017. Francisco Rodriguez was in Gresham and I to support East County community members who are
Hang
facing...
on. What happened to your mic?
Is your mic on?
Your mic turned off. Your suit was too
everybody?
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And where'd the little thing go?
Okay, now you're good.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Okay.
Hey, Cam, you want to tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. In short, we help folks who are facing deportation or in detention hire immigration attorneys, gather supporting evidence, communicate with their families, give them the best possible chance to stay here with their families.
Yeah. So, Cam, how old is this organization?
We started in April 2017, so 2.5 years now.
And Jay mentioned that this started with just a personal experience you had.
Yeah, a coworker and a good friend of mine was one of the first DACA recipients detained under the Trump administration in Oregon, and several folks in the Portland community showed up for him at a protest outside the ICE office and flooded their phone lines. He was actually released within 24 hours of being sent to the Tacoma Detention Center. And that was a really miraculous story. When he and I came back to work in Gresham, working in food pantries, teaching ESL, working after school, so many other families that we worked with that we cared about came to us with the same issue. And because they hadn't worked at 4 nonprofits in Portland, they didn't have the same connections, there was no outpouring of support for them. And realistically, people were taking advantage of them, taking their money. They're in a situation where they're supposed to hire an attorney to give somebody, at least a shot at coming back home to their family. And it's right for exploitation. So we formed our organization to help people make sure they weren't hiring a fraud. They actually found somebody who was willing to help them honestly do a good job. And we've helped 15 people get released from detention and get back with their families.
Wow. That's amazing. Are you an attorney?
No.
So
none of us are attorneys. In fact, there's a lot of things people can do who aren't attorneys who really want to support immigrants right now. Number one, legal fees. It costs like $10,000 to $15,000 to hire an attorney for somebody who's facing deportation. It's even more expensive if they're in detention. You might have to pay for additional things like a mental health evaluation or a country conditions expert to come testify in court for them to give them at least a shot at staying here. And for the majority of people, particularly people who are seeking asylum, who don't have a work permit and can't earn enough money to pay $10,000 for an attorney, and then maybe another $10,000 or $15,000 for bond, there's really no support for them. So we get phone calls from 50 to 100 people in detention a day asking for help. Just communicating with their families is the most basic thing, because phone calls, they get charged for them in the detention centers, and you get earned $1 a day for your labor. So people earn enough money to speak with their families or their attorneys or their advocates for 4 minutes off of a full day worth of labor. And so, really $10, $15 really makes an enormous difference. This summer, 3 different people that we helped only by providing communication credits so they could speak with their attorneys, their families, their advocates. 3 different people have been released from detention, reunited with their families with $10 to $15. Wow. It's crazy.
Where do people go to make those donations? Because here we are talking about a lot of stuff where people feel helpless to help. You are providing an opportunity for people to make a difference. Where can people do that?
Sure. People can visit our website, pueblonidopdx.org, or just Google Pueblo Nido. We'll show up there. We're working towards getting 100% of donations put towards legal defense fees. Right now we're at about 80%. And again, that means families in this community get reunited because unfortunately, technological and linguistic and literacy and financial barriers are what keep families separated, sometimes permanently. And people in this room have skills or resources that can help them stay together or reunite with their families.
Do you find that people in the Pacific Northwest tend to think that it's happening elsewhere and not happening here?
Yeah, we hear all the time about what's going on at the border or the horror that is the southern border, and it is. But 65% of people who are in the Tacoma Detention Center, which is the detention center for the whole Pacific Northwest, 65% of 1,300 people were asylum seekers, people who presented themselves at the border in Texas or Arizona or California asking for asylum. And instead of allowing them to present their case in the United States before an immigration judge through a court process while checking in with ICE, they're detained. And that's primarily because they're not married and they don't have any kids. So there's people who are my age and younger than me, people who are my sister's age, who are victims of sexual assault or fleeing legitimate violence that they were directly influenced by. And they have no access to mental health resources. They have no access to an attorney who can help them assert their rights and actually present what might be a viable claim successfully. Otherwise, people are forced to represent themselves because immigration is civil court instead of criminal. So people can be detained for years because they'll lose their case when they're unrepresented, and then appeal and lose that again, and then appeal one more time. And you end up 3 years in detention where you're paying for your own food, your deodorant, your communication. It's unbelievable. And it's a business that people are profiting from.
So aside from making donations to your organization, which we all should do, and I would love for Luke, he's doing all of our video tonight, he can put in the comments a link to your organization. So if anyone wants to come back later to the Curious Facebook page or YouTube, you can see the show, you can see the link to the organization. But what are some other things we can do as elections are coming our way? Like how do we help? A donation can help now, and then how can we help put some wheels in motion so that this situation evolves into being a less traumatic and tragic situation?
Well, there's a political response there, and it's on its own time frame. I have a tough time waiting for politicians, so that's why we decided to form the organization. And there are direct things people can do. In fact, I'm the only paid staff member for our organization, and we have over 30 volunteers that power our team. Every public-facing communication, our website, our merchandise, all of that is built and powered by our volunteers. And just people in the community who wanted to support us by putting on a community show, a comedy show, or a benefit event or a concert. They raised $35,000 for us last year. As a grassroots organization, I didn't have any funding secured through contracts or grants at the time to get that sort of support from the community and to be able to immediately put that into an impactful way to reunite people that we care about, that live here with us. That's really unbelievable, and that's 100% powered by support from the community. So it's not just money. You can spend your time, your effort, volunteering to support organizations. In fact, I'm leading a navigator training at the end of this month. If you're interested in helping people in your community access free legal services, people who are asylum seekers who are not detained, who are here in Portland, this training is free.
So a navigator training is to help kind of get plugged into the organization
And they're not detained, but they still need to navigate the legal system?
Yeah, so there are people who are in the detention centers called detainees, people in detention. And then there are some people who apply for asylum at the southern border and then are released. And the pattern that I've seen is it's people who are married or who have children that come into the United States with them at the exact same time that are then released. Everybody else who's single, who doesn't have the kid with them, is detained for the duration of their case, which means it's much more difficult to access legal representation, any type of social services. You're not allowed to work when you're here seeking asylum until after you submit your application and wait a filing period, which means you're just here on the mercy of somebody else paying all of your bills for you and your family. And you're trying to do everything right, and you just can't work. It's so essential to human dignity to be able to support yourself and provide for your family. And we just don't give people that opportunity. It's really unbelievable. But for people in that situation, you all might know them, or they might clean the buildings that y'all work in or that you live in. Those folks might need an access to an attorney. And if you come to one of these trainings to become a navigator, there's a new program called Equity Corps funded by Multnomah County and Portland and now by the state of Oregon to provide free legal representation to people who are not detained or facing deportation in Oregon. And if you're somebody who wants to connect with them and actually be able to hand somebody a tangible resource, hey, I can help you get legal aid for free and save $10,000 and actually have a chance to stay in this country. That's something that you can do just by coming to a training and becoming, somebody who's accredited to do that.
Awesome, yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Great work that you're doing. Please give it up for Cam Global, everybody.
Wow. I am not doing enough.
I know. Right? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
That's incredibly inspiring.
It is very inspiring, and you can hear, right, the passion in his voice. And now that leads to another important guest that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you introduce him, Jay?
Well, he's a certified nutritionist. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Craig McCarthy.
Yeah.
Hi, Craig.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. All right, so Jane Stacy, so I was going to come out here today and show you how to cook or make a really fresh and healthy guacamole, but I'm not going to do that today.
Oh.
It's been kind of a crazy week for me. Like, I'm not normally a political guy at all, but I was trying to get on the website for the Certified Nutritionist of North America, and I stumbled over a little website called CNN.com. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Have you heard of CNN.com? You guys heard of CNN.com?
Yeah, I think most people have heard of that site.
Yeah.
I think it's
a crazy website.
Okay.
Anyway, I was perusing the headlines of CNN.com, and it turns out the political situation in this country is crazy. Have you seen it? It's wild, the political situation.
It's pretty much all we've been talking about so far. So
I was in the green room, wasn't really paying attention, yeah. So, instead of cooking or making food for you, I realized I can't just be making food for rich celebrities like you two. I need to be doing something important with my art. So instead of making guacamole today, I'm going to be doing a highly political performance art piece I like to call Guac America. That's right.
Oh, no.
Are you ready for this? You ready to get in your face?
I don't think anybody is ready for this, Craig.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I'm going to be making a dish for you I call Guac America. What do we start off for this dish? Well, we start off with a good base of green. That's right, money and greed. Look, the richer you are, the more you take. You take and take all this greed and money. Oh, God. Then what's next? How about you take an American education system filled with ripe young minds, and then you're gonna squeeze out all the funding from the public schools until there's nothing but husks left. This is a little cooking technique I call divorcing. Then you're gonna take a strong and proud middle-class labor force, and you're gonna stomp all over it.
Oh, God.
Until they're so beaten down, they don't even realize what the government's doing to them. Yeah, two in your face.
Yeah, a little bit.
Then you take just a spoonful of institutional racism and sexism. Oh, wait. Did I say a spoonful? I meant the whole bottle! Then you add into that just a dash of cumin. Because cumin's just really good in a dish like this. You and I would really want to use the cumin to tie the whole flavor profile together. Then, what do we do to bind this whole thing together? One American economy. And guess what? There's not wealth distribution like this country should have. This economy is a trickle down where the rich just piss all over you. So there you go. You mix it all together. And there you have it. Oh, God. And what are you gonna use to sop it up? How about you take a little cultural appropriation to go with it? And ladies and gentlemen, that right there is what I call Guac America.
Craig McCarthy, everybody! Craig McCarthy! I would say thank you, Craig, but I don't want to.
Fair enough. Two in your face, I get it.
We should have mentioned this is the splash zone. I'm giving you garbage bags or something.
Oh my! I did not realize it was going to be like going to see Gallagher.
It's the anti-Gallagher.
Yeah, it is. Well, we're nearing the end of our show, which has become our political episode.
I guess so.
And so I think we all could use a little more comfort and beauty. Please welcome back Lisa James and Chelsea Sue.